Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. I'm your host, Sam Lance, and as always, I'm joined by Jackson Bezdek. And today we have a very, very special episode for you guys. We'll be recapping Kansas's 71-63 win over Eastern Illinois and looking ahead to a pretty big game against UConn with Hartford current beat writer Joe Arruda. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. Episode 7 of The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast. We are back here on The Hum, and man, Jackson, what an interesting game we have to discuss today. Kansas, the newly minted number 5 team in the country via the AP poll, didn't really look like a top 5 team at all on Tuesday, beating Eastern Illinois by just 8 points. The Jayhawks, mind you, coming into this game were 30-plus point favorites, and Eastern Illinois is ranked 300-something in KenPom. They're in the 300s of KenPom, and they were picked last in the Ohio Valley Conference. Jackson, what do you make of this? Close one in the field house last night.
That was a bizarre game all around. It was one of those games where it wasn't necessarily of, oh man, Kansas were playing so bad. It was one of those, wait, they're only up 5 right now? We're only up 4 now? Wait, what just happened? It was so weird because it wasn't a barrage of threes by Eastern Illinois. They just had a couple guards who could hit some contested jumpers, and Kansas could not get rolling on offense.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of might have been a little bit of a trap game for Kansas. I mean, they'd just gotten back from Maui, the big one against UConn on Friday, and then you got this penciled in the middle of that on a Tuesday. So, I mean, it could have been a little bit of a look-ahead spot, but Bill Self in the post-game presser was not having any of that. He said, and I quote, "It would be a bullshit excuse if Kansas used that," but he also mentioned it's kind of a little bit of the natural thing to do looking ahead, but he says it was probably a little bit more of being tired and looking back at that Maui Invitational.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's definitely a weird spot for a game. I think Eastern Illinois is so bad. They're almost too bad to be a trap game. You know what I'm saying? But it is strange that penciled right in between Maui and UConn, you've got this random Ohio Valley team coming into the field house, and Bill's absolutely right. I mean, and it's totally fair, by the way. You play 3 games in 3 days, 2 of them against great teams. That's going to wear on your guys' legs, especially DeJuan Harris, who offensively was not himself last night, and I completely think it was due to the fatigue from Maui.
Yeah, whether that was really a factor or not is kind of besides the point. So let's just dig into this game a little bit here, Jackson. First, we got the Kansas start. It was a pretty impressive start. Kansas went on that 8-0 run to start the game, forced an EIU timeout. If you remember, Elmarco Jackson kind of had his first big-time highlight. He had a little backdoor cut, big-time 2-hand slam, which was pretty good to see. But Hunter Dickinson, man, was really the spark to start this. 6 points, 7 rebounds, an assist, and a block at just the under 16 media timeout. Was a big reason why Kansas led 10-4.
Yeah, 100%. Kansas came out super hot right away. First play of the game was just a simple Hunter Dickinson post up off of a nice screen away action to where he could seal his guy. Kevin hit him right on the block. I mean, that's getting too easy for Hunter Dickinson on the block. His third one, he kind of like jelly rolled that one. He was like, at this point, he was bored. He was trying new things. I mean, him and DeJuan running that pick and roll, that's a great way to start the game. You know, first 3 minutes, you establish that. You establish like, hey, you probably aren't going to be able to stop this all night. So you're in for a rough one, bud.
Yeah, Kansas was able to get Hunter Dickinson going early, but then they took him out of the game. You know, at that under 16 timeout, Bill Self, he went to Parker Brown and Johnny Furphy. Parker in for Hunter, Furphy in for Elmarco Jackson. And man, right whenever that happened, things just went completely stagnant offensively. The ball movement was really lackluster, and Kansas scored 2 points in 4 minutes of game time before KJ Adams broke that streak with a little dunk there at around the 12-minute mark. But Kansas, after a great start, lets Eastern Illinois kind of getting back into the game. Next thing you know, it's 12-7.
Yeah. And when Dickinson's not in the game, Kansas was really relying on guys like Furphy and McCullough to hit shots. And shots weren't falling from the outside in the first few minutes of the first half. And when that doesn't happen and you don't have Dickinson to rely on, everyone kind of looks at each other like, all right, who's going to step up here? And McCullough checked out a couple minutes after Dickinson checked out. And then when he went out, it was really kind of up to DeJuan to run the offense as an aggressor. And that's not really DeJuan's game. So taking Dickinson out there, I thought it was interesting, honestly, because
I think
you go
so.
on
Did
that
it on purpose. I think he did it to see how the team could handle him being out. And
yeah, totally. I completely agree. Because, I mean, you keep Dickinson in, that game can be 15-0 in about 2 more minutes and it's over, right? But you take Dickinson out, just like you said, all right, what does my 5 look like when I don't have my All-American center in?
yeah, I mean, really, where does Kansas turn to without Hunter Dickinson in the game? I mean, and if you take it even farther, I just couldn't even imagine what Kansas would look like this season if Hunter Dickinson never even came here. If he went somewhere else in the portal. I mean, I really don't know what Kansas would do without him. And that stretch and that game really kind of showed that Kansas needs Hunter Dickinson bad to be out on that floor. Foul trouble, Jackson, could be a big issue, especially, UConn has Klingon, a big body to put against them. I don't know what Kansas does if Hunter Dickinson gets in foul trouble.
I mean, really, right now, especially at this point in the season, when Kansas doesn't know who's stepping up in that 2 spot, it's going to really have to be the Kevin McCullough show. I mean, that's the time where he needs to turn into Jalen Wilson and Ochai, especially when Dickinson's out of the game. And if Dickinson picks up a couple in the first 8 to 10 minutes, that's a totally reasonable thing that could happen, man. Just is. And that's the time, especially at home in the field house, Kevin's got to be like, all right, this is where I go get 8 in a row. And he didn't do that last night. Not like a huge concern or anything, but it's definitely that. I think that's what has to happen. That's the direction Kansas has to go to right now.
And you kind of mentioned that 2 spot there for a second. I mean, Kansas, they got a little bit of life out of the 2 spot after that little run by EIU to trim it to 12-7. Nick Timberlake gets in. He airballs his first 3.
Immediately airballs.
Completely airballs his first 3. And
the vibe in the field house after that was not great. It was, you could hear a pin drop.
I saw a lot of people on Twitter being like, eek, like after that one. But anyways, he airballs that one. And then he gets one to fall shortly after, hits a 3. And I think it was really big for his confidence. Wayne Simeon, I was watching the broadcast at home last night. Mm-hmm. He said on the broadcast that he saw Nick Timberlake kind of mutter like, it's about time or something along those lines. And I mean, I think that gave Nick a lot of confidence seeing that going, because next possession, shot fake, pull up, little midi, hits it.
Yeah, it was a good move. That second move that he had, that's the Towson Timberlake that we haven't seen yet. All of those,
that's the mixtape Timberlake.
I was gonna say that mixtape that we've been seeing, like he's hitting a lot of pull-up middies in those. Like that's kind of his game. That's kind of where he operates. And did you see that? He almost put some guy on a poster, 2-hand slammed, and he was up there. That was not the issue. He just lost the ball at the top, but he had the elevation. That was a really impressive just burst of athleticism. And that was also in that little 2-minute frame. That stretch, if you can get 9 to 11 minutes of that, I think that's really all Kansas needs out of Timberlake, because we'll just talk about, Elmarko and Furphy later, but I don't think Timberlake's going to be the 6th man sniper that we saw Remy Martin be, or even like a Jalen Coleman Lands. I don't even think he's that. But if he can give you 10 to 12 really, really solid minutes of him being an explosive combo guard, that's really what Kansas needs off the bench right now.
And Kansas got that for a little bit last night, and they were able to push the lead up a little more. Elmarko Jackson actually hit a 3-pointer in this stretch as well. So just really cool to see that 2 spot kind of get a little bit of confidence in that stretch. But the ball was also moving really well, which is one of Self's biggest keys. And next thing you know, Kansas, they're up 12 with 6 minutes to play in the first half.
definitely. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to add to that. I think El Marco, if we want to kind of dive into him now, like honestly, liked what I saw out of him. He's playing with a little more confidence, I think. And what I mean by that is he's got that shovel when he drives baseline, he's got that shovel pass to Dickinson down. We've seen that multiple times over the past couple of games. That's kind of a good nice little move he has. But just in general, I think that I've been just him dribbling the ball, it's been more confident. Still not perfect. He still had a couple turnovers last night that were kind of, I mean, Bill literally gives you one of those. But I'm just seeing. I mean, he made that 2-hand dunk you talked about earlier. He was really fired up after that.
Oh, yeah.
Hits a three. He was fired up after that. He's getting into it on defense more. I just think the more he's growing and the more times he spends around these guys at practice and around this coaching staff, you get that fire of like wanting to win. And when you get that, that's when we're going to see his explosive playmaking on the offensive end finally come out.
Yeah, for sure. And that first half now, going back to that, Kansas ends up winning that half by 13, 38-25. Really, all in all, Kansas kind of played okay in that first half. The only issue really to me was on the glass. K was even rebounding margin with EIU at the break and gave up 8 offensive rebounds, which is pretty unacceptable. And we'll talk about the glass a little bit later. But yeah, the EIU hits that bank 3 at the end of the half to kind of cut it to 13. And next thing you know, you come out of the second half. Bill Self said the key to that game was coming out and really playing well to start that second half. But the Jayhawks just didn't do it right to start the second half. 12-4 run from EIU.
Yep. And once the opposing team's bench gets into it and you hit that 3 to cut it to 10 and then you cut it to 8 and they're fired up like you just took the lead by 2, that's at least when I start to worry. Like okay, they think they can hang. When you let them hang around that much, you can like Eastern Illinois convinces themselves that they belong on the floor with you. That's why you need to set the tone right out of the gate at halftime. You come out and you put the 12-4 run, you coast the rest of the second half, 100% absolutely. But you let them hang around, now they've convinced themselves that they belong in this game, and that's why it was a game the entire second half.
Yeah, that 12-4 run brought the game to 42-37. And, this run happens, and where does Bill Self turn to? I thought this was very interesting. Again, he goes to Jamari McDowell off the bench with that core 4. And I think, again, that was pretty cool to see. Jamari McDowell, how about this? First possession he's in the game, he's first to the floor, grabs an extra possession for Kansas, gets McCullough an open 3. McCullough misses the open 3, but who's there to clean up the rebound? Jamari McDowell cleans up the rebound, draws a foul. 2 possessions he gave Kansas in 1 play. That's what Jamari can do.
Instant energy. That's what he does, man. And I've noticed in these last couple of games, he had 4 against Tennessee, a couple more last night. He's a good rebounder.
It's not for those rebounds.
It's not because he's got great size. It jumps pretty high. Just effort. I mean, rebounding is 90% effort. And every single time I watch him play, he is out of the 10 guys on the floor, he is giving the most effort. He's the instant energy guy off the bench. And guess what? He's got a little bit of a bag too. He can make some things happen on the offensive end. But I totally agree with you. When you see him come off the bench with that starting group and he's diving on the floor, same principle applies. He's acting like he belongs on the floor with those 4 guys. Those other 4 guys have accomplished so much more in college basketball than he has to this point. Yet he comes out and gives instant energy and crashes the floor and crashes the glass. Now he's like, all right, let's go. His confidence is up. Give me the ball. Let's run this.
Yeah, for sure. Jamari, though, even with his energy, even with his spurt, Kansas still couldn't find much separation. At one point in the second half, EIU trailed just by 2 points around the midway point, and the rest of the game, it was a game. Kansas, though, able to just make enough plays down the stretch. You had that little steal and the dunk by Kevin McCullough at the end to seal the deal. But, man, 30-plus point favorites not an ideal showing for the Jayhawks to only get a 71-63 win against a team you should have beat by 30.
Yeah, and credit to their guards. They hit a couple tough shots in the second half. That Booker kid who had the mask, that kid can
Got
play.
20 points.
He was the one who hit that bank shot at halftime. That was just so ridiculous. But it was his night. When it's your night, it's your night. And he had a great night. They're hitting step backs with McCullough hand right in their face. Not a care in the world, knocking it down. Like, those guys impressed me. But like I said earlier, it wasn't Eastern Illinois hits 15 threes, only down 2 to Kansas. No, it wasn't like that. They honestly, I thought they guarded really well in the second half, if I'm being completely honest with you. And you don't even expect that in a team ranked in the 300s in KenPom. But that 12-4 run, that just gave them all the energy they needed. And it was tough for Kansas to get things going on offense that wasn't a Hunter Dickinson block shot.
Yeah, the biggest thing to me that Eastern Illinois was able to do to kind of prevent Kansas from pulling away was just rebound the basketball. Bill Self after this game was very, very, very candid about the rebounding situation. I mean, he pretty much said, besides Hunter Dickinson, nobody on the team has rebounded the ball. And
the numbers back that up. The numbers absolutely back that up.
Some more of what Self said here. He said that, that Kansas isn't going to be a very good a very good offensive rebounding team. Right now, they're pretty poor. They get less than 30% of their misses back. Mm-hmm. So the defensive glass is what's most important for this team. The defensive glass, Kansas cannot allow any extra possessions at all. And right now, they're allowing a lot. I mean, it's Eastern Illinois. Kansas has a 7-footer in Hunter Dickinson. KJ Adams and Kevin McCullough are one of the best wing rebounders in the country, and you get out-rebounded 36-33 by Eastern Illinois.
This isn't a new thing either.
They grabbed 13 offensive rebounds.
This has happened all year. Tennessee killed it on the glass, basically lost to Marquette because gave up so many offensive rebounds. They almost blew it last night because you give up so many offensive rebounds against a team and their 2 big guys foul out too. Within still with 5 minutes left, not with 2 minutes left, good chunks amount of time, their bigs are out. They don't have anybody physically to match any Kansas player. I'm not sure. I just the lack of box outs is just, it's honestly from a middle school team, you'd expect this. I don't expect this out of a Kansas team. They're literally doing what you teach in 3rd grade. You turn, guy shoots, you find your man. They're just turning and looking at the rim. It's actually 8-year-old stuff.
I mean, KJ Adams is, I think, kind of the biggest person who needs to step up in this area.
Yep,
Bill Self even said it himself. KJ Adams, you're 6'8", you're guarding 4s now. Last year, Bill Self kind of mentioned that KJ playing that 5 spot, his responsibility was just not allowing the big man to grab the rebound. And then you had guys like Jalen Wilson, Kevin McCullough to come clean up the rebounds. Well, this year, KJ Adams needs to be one of those guys who puts his butt on somebody and goes and gets the basketball. Bill Self was pretty critical of that. The kid is averaging 3.4 rebounds. 3.4.
It's got to be more. It has to be 6. You cannot be relying on Dickinson to legitimately get 20 rebounds a game. That's an unbelievably unfair ask of anybody in the country. KJ getting 3 a game, he's probably the best athlete in college basketball, and I'm not kidding. There's no reason he could be 6'2" with the same athleticism, and I'd still expect more than 3 rebounds a game.
Yeah, for sure. That was kind of a big issue last night, the rebounding, but another big issue that has been pretty prevalent all season that showed up again yesterday is just Kansas getting beat off the bounce. This is the Self quote from last night. I think their ability to be quicker than us and getting shots off the bounce. They got several of them off the bounce, and we didn't do a good job of playing our man. Eastern Illinois should not be a team that Bill Self says they were quicker than us.
Yeah. That just doesn't make sense. I mean, they were picked last in the Ohio Valley, and they're saying, their guards are better. No, they're not. They're not. All right.
If Eastern Illinois is actually quicker than Kansas, then I think we have some major, major, major problems. I don't know if Kansas is making it out of the second weekend if that's the case, but man, like, what does Kansas have to do to stop getting beat off the bounce?
It's bizarre because if you take a look just objectively at each Kansas defender as an on-ball defender and grade them, you would grade them all pretty high, I'd say. And like those tough shots that Eastern Illinois was hitting, the reason they're able to get that little bit of separation is because they did look quicker on their first step and they were able to step back and create a foot to where they could get a shot off over a guy like Kevin McCullough. Is it they came out flat against a team that they looked over trying to play UConn Friday in Eastern Illinois? That's why they're not staying in front of anybody? Is it because the energy in the field house wasn't very high last night?
It's been a thing all year,
what
though,
they're relying
Jackson.
on.
It wasn't just this game. It's been all year. Teams have been driving right by Kansas.
There's like, I'm trying to like analyze it, and there's really nothing to say. You gotta stay in front of your guy. I mean, I think there's a lot of, because Kansas switches pretty much everything. They're not guarding guys straight up, right? You're not standing directly in front of him. You're pushing him towards the help, the way that Kansas is defending. And I think they're just, over opening themselves a little bit and allowing too much of a lane. And, if you're trying to drive this guy into help and you end up giving up a layup, that's the guy that's supposed to help. That's on him. So is it the help defense isn't sagging low enough in the paint? I don't know. There's probably multiple reasons that Bill's all over in practice, but it's a thing that needs to get fixed because some guards in the Big 12 are going to be quicker than some of our guys.
Bill Self said a big part of it is just playing the catch. He said that a lot of times this year, they're catching the ball, the opposing team on the 3-point line, as opposed to, a few steps out beyond the 3-point line. Like if you watch the Marquette game, a big reason why Kansas offense was disrupted is because they were playing offense from way beyond the 3-point line.
35 feet.
So I think
you got to jump to the ball. They're not jumping to the ball either. When if you're in man defense and they're in a 4-out and your guy passes, Kansas is, instead of jumping and extending and getting in the passing lane, they're just, oh, my guy passed it. That's cool. And they sag back 2 feet. And then when your guy does get the ball, now you're not in position. And now he's at the 3-point line because you got lazy and sagged off a couple feet.
Yeah, the defense just getting blown by has really been a problem so far. I think it's still early. And Bill Self, you know how he is with his
He'll get it going.
He's going to get this corrected in due time, definitely before March. Another thing I kind of want to talk about now is the bench. The bench play, the two major issues for this team, shooting and the depth, again, last night was pretty apparent. Bill Self said before the game, a key was kind of getting those young guys going. He said that he still thinks that some people are holding back, playing not to screw up. You just need to let those guys go.
Mm-hmm.
I think besides Jamari McDowell, like that's pretty true of all of Kansas's young players. I'm going to throw Nick Timberlake into those young players as well, just because
new players,
new to the system. But Bill Self said he needs more out of his bench. That first half, he gets a little bit out of them. At halftime, he still says, we didn't play bad, but we have to get our bench to play better. And then you have the second half. Besides Jamari McDowell, there was no bench for Kansas in the second half. Listen to this, Jackson.
All right.
Besides Kevin McCullough, Hunter Dickinson, and KJ Adams, which is Kansas's 3 best scorers.
Okay.
Kansas last night in the second half had 3 points.
0
of 6 from the field. Excluding those 3 guys. I don't know about you, Jackson, but that's probably not going to win many meaningful games in March.
Nope. That's pretty rough. Wow. Every time I watch Furphy, he leaves me wanting more. Did you feel that way too? I mean, he's just such a 6'8" guard who is from Australia and plays this kind of funky brand of basketball. He just
seems like he's there a lot.
He's getting relegated to the corner right now, which is fine because he can make that shot. He's going to hit that at a good clip, I think, this season. But I feel like there's another level to Johnny Furphy that maybe, he was hurt coming into this season from camp. Maybe he's still not 100% healthy. Bill's holding him back a little bit to keep him fresh. There could be a lot of reasons why we've seen Furphy kind of be a corner three guy when we all know he's way more than that. But at some point, that's going to need to flip, because him being a corner three guy is great and all, but that's not why Johnny Furphy was recruited to play here. It's not going to help this team any more than any guy standing in the corner would, right? Because he's a talk about getting blown by on defense. He's one of the main culprits of it right now. And then you got Timberlake, who's also getting blown by on defense, who he was first off the bench in the second half and then immediately came back out and then was done. It was odd, because I remember making note of that, of, oh, wow, Timberlake's first off the bench. I bet Self, he's got that confidence from that little spurt, trying to ride that. And then he played 2 minutes and he was toast. And then, yeah, I talked about Jamar already. I just want more from Furphy.
Yeah, I mean, Furphy, he just seems like he's just kind of out there playing right now. Like, he's not really looking to be aggressive, like looking for a shot besides the catch and shoot. But yeah, just the bench in general, Jackson. I mean, Kansas has Kansas just has to get something out of these bench guys. And I'll kind of include El Marco, just something from these guys outside of that top four needs to happen. It could also be a guy like DeJuan Harris, who kind of, strengthens up that scoring. It's time to talk about DeJuan now a little bit. I'll just call it like I see it. I mean, DeJuan Harris needs to be more aggressive. 2 years ago, the national championship team, where really DeJuan actually did not have to shoot, because he had
literally
Remy Martin,
didn't need him.
David McCormick, Christian Brown, Ochai Agbaji.
Yeah.
That was a really good team that can make outside shots. 2 years ago, that was 2 years ago, 5.2 field goals per game. Last year, DeJuan, uptick, 7.7 field goals attempted per game, which is kind of, pretty good spot. I would say anywhere between 8 and 11, 8 to 12 shots this year is probably where Kansas needs DeJuan. If you had to guess where DeJuan is for his field goals per game average this year, where do you think?
Well, considering he basically had 2 games with 0, I would say it's around 6.
5.4, only 0.2 higher than DeJuan Harris.
Wow.
2 years ago. DeJuan Harris has regressed his aggressiveness, and it's not okay. DeJuan Harris needs to be a scorer for this team. He needs to take more shots. He needs to be aggressive, or else I think this Kansas team is in trouble if DeJuan.
If he can't play when Dickinson's on the floor and off the floor, he needs to be playing 2 different ways. And that's kind of, that's not really something you want to tell a player, but in this situation, DeJuan, when Dickinson's in, do your thing, pass to him, run your offense, go around the screen once, come back around, kick it, do your thing, man. But when he's off the floor and you can't rely on that, I don't love the pick and roll with Parker Brown as much. It's fine, but I need DeJuan to actually come off a ball screen and look to be aggressive. The main issue with DeJuan is he doesn't have a mid-range pull-up, right? And he gets into that spot open so many times, and he either, tries to rush a floater or ends up passing back out. So him not having any type of mid-range game at all is super detrimental. Not that I'm asking him to do that, but dude, just anything. I mean, come off a screen and look to hit a 3 or something, because until you at least show that you're going to do that, teams are not going to respect it or guard you, because you're not going to. And then Dickinson's double teamed.
And the only reason that DeJuan had a huge game against Kentucky is that they literally refused to guard him. Kentucky did not guard DeJuan Harris, and that's why he was able to score 25. I know DeJuan Harris can score on people. I know it. I know he can do it. He needs to be more aggressive for this Kansas team to reach its ceiling. Just one last point of interest here. Hunter Dickinson post-game comment that really stood out to me is he said that Kansas just needs to make teams uncomfortable. And if you've been around Bill Self, this is something that he says all the time. Make teams play bad, make them feel uncomfortable. I don't think that Kansas has done that one time this season. And the Jayhawks, if they allow UConn to feel comfortable,
It's over.
Kansas might get blown out by 20 plus. So
That game can be over in 10 minutes on Friday. It really can be. Eastern Illinois looked pretty damn comfortable last night in Allen Fieldhouse. I mean, there's got to be at least a little bit of, pride there, right? Like, we don't lose here. I didn't really see a lot of that last night. Yeah, you're right. With Dickinson and with KJ, like, we have so many options to make teams uncomfortable, right? Dickinson in himself, he's just one of those guys who's like gross to guard. He's like, his sweat's all over you and he's like super all up in you, sweating down your head. You're just kind of like, ugh, I just like don't really want to touch this guy when I guard him. That's uncomfortable. McCullough is a wingspan. His wingspan is almost damn near 7 feet. You got him guarding guards on the perimeter. That's going to make you uncomfortable. DeJuan can press you for 94 feet. That's going to make you uncomfortable. KJ Adams can put you on a poster at any minute. That's got to be uncomfortable. There's all of these different ingredients that Kansas has. But that soup, it does not taste good right now. It just doesn't have that kick. There's no spice. There's no seasoning. We need some of that.
Yeah. Kansas 71-63 win against Eastern Illinois. This Hunter Dickinson, 25-13 to lead the way. Kevin McCullough, another pretty solid game, 18 points, 3 rebounds. KJ Adams, 10 points, 3 rebounds. Besides that, no other Jayhawks in double figures. It's on the UConn now, Jackson. It is on the UConn. Hopefully, Kansas can just put that one on the back burner, not think about it, come out, have a good showing against UConn. And we'll be talking UConn with our guests here up next on The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast. Booyah.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook for this college basketball season. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks and predictions throughout the college basketball season. And we are going to have special offers for you, the listeners and the viewers on the Field of 68 each and every week during the season. If you haven't signed up with BetMGM yet, use the bonus code FIELD1500 and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager on BetMGM Sportsbook. Here's what you got to do. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up using the bonus code FIELD1500. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if that bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FIELD1500 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available under one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient for me when I have to go cover games in New York or Philly. When crossing state borders, just log into your existing account instead of having to create new accounts in each state that you go to. And most importantly, I got to let you know, we do have some fun stuff coming up for this college basketball season. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boosts, my personal favorite, parlay odds boosts. So download the BetMGM app today.
Welcome back, everybody, to The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. We are joined now by a very special guest, Joe Arruda of the Hartford Courant. Joe has been covering UConn going on nearly 2 years now. And he also has quite the basketball background. He's an alum of Springfield College, which, if you didn't know, is the birthplace of basketball. So we are very, very happy to have Joe with us today to talk some UConn hoops. Joe, how we doing, man?
I'm glad you did your research. I wasn't sure what you guys claimed as the home of basketball, but yeah, it's Springfield College, in case anyone didn't know.
Coherently with Kansas, we'll add. Kansas also big factor in that. Well, all right, Joe. First things first, got a big game coming up. Top 5 matchup, number 4, number 5 in Allen Fieldhouse, the loudest indoor arena in the world. Just first thing, how do you kind of expect this UConn team to handle the atmosphere? And have you ever been to Allen Fieldhouse before to kind of experience that?
I've never been to Allen Field. I'm so excited. I mean, the team, this is the game they circled on their calendar. This is the game I circled on my calendar. I'm very excited to get out there. But, the way the team responds to the environment, this is a team that just played in front of, except for 5 guys, this is a team that just played in front of 75,000 people in the Final Four and won the national championship. So they're confident that they're not going to be shook up by it. But, they haven't faced a true road crowd like this, fully road crowd, really in the last 2 years. So it'll be interesting to see, how they are able to react, and they're going to count on some freshmen too. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, Joe, obviously kind of the big marquee matchup in this one would be Hunter Dickinson against Donovan Clingan. So what do you think Clingan needs to do in order to kind of win this battle against Hunter Dickinson? And how do you think the battle will unfold as the game progresses?
Yeah, I mean, this is it's one of the the best centers in college basketball, and a young guy who wants to measure himself up against those guys. And it's going to be interesting. We just talked a lot about it at practice, and this is a game where you might see a little bit of Samson Johnson too, who's a 6'10" forward who can really block shots, and he's very mobile. But yeah, Donovan, it's going to be ball screen defense. It's going to be, blocking shots at the rim. It's going to be other guys helping out too, because Donovan, he's still, he says his foot is 100% now. He missed, about a month in the preseason, but yeah, I mean, that's going to be a tough matchup. I remember I watched Hunter Dickinson, speaking of Springfield College, I watched him at the Hoop Hall Classic back when he was in high school. And I remember everyone left that game thinking, whoa, like this guy's really good, because he had just played he outplayed Evan Mobley, who was the number 1 recruit in the country at the time. So I think they have a lot of respect for Hunter Dickinson. I definitely think he's one of the best in the country. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that defensively, especially. And then on the offensive end, we'll see what he can do.
Right now, besides Clingan, you guys have 4 other guys averaging 14 or more a game, which is pretty remarkable. You got Cam Spencer, Tristan Newton, Alex Carabon, and Stephon Castle, of course, won't be playing, but all of those guys above that 14 points per game. Firstly, Joe, do you think this is sustainable for UConn the rest of the season? And how do you think, UConn's been able to disperse the ball so well?
Yeah, I mean, it is. And that's really what their offense is based on. It's very unselfish play. They have a lot of guards who really move the ball. Cam Spencer passes the ball a ton and really hits his shots. Every shot he takes looks like it's going in. And then Tristan Newton has just had his 3rd career triple-double. He's the most in college basketball right now. And then, Alex Caravan is just Mr. Consistent. He makes threes. It was a rough game their last time out, shooting the ball. So they're really looking to bounce back in this game. And yeah, I think it is sustainable just because of how Dan Hurley runs his system and the way that they move the ball.
So kind of building off that, it seems that UConn has a very, very deep team. You guys can kind of run 10 deep with Stephon. You guys have 8 guys right now averaging 18 or more minutes per game. Kind of the opposite of Kansas right now. I mean, right now, Kansas is not getting a lot of production out of its bench. So how do you think that might be a factor in this game?
Yeah, I think it'll be huge. I think, the freshmen so far haven't been, as great. Steph was really good the first 2 games he was in, and then obviously the knee injury. But, Solo Ball stepping in for him in the starting lineup. He's kind of gotten off to a slow start shooting the ball, but they really rave about his shot in practice and everything. They think the game's coming a little fast to him, but, this might be a tough one for him to go into that environment. But yeah, I mean, the depth, Hassan Diarra off the bench, and like I mentioned, Samson Johnson earlier, those guys, you'll definitely probably see a heavy dose of them. Hassan's a very, defensively focused New York City style gritty guard who can sort of mix it up in there. But yeah, I think the depth is going to be a big thing, tomorrow or Friday.
Yeah, and another huge issue for Kansas this year has been on the glass. UConn, one of the best in the country, 3rd best rebounding margin in the country. So this is going to be an interesting test for Kansas, having struggled on the glass this year. So how do you see this kind of battle on the glass going for UConn when it, looks like it could be a pretty massive advantage?
Yeah, I mean, UConn, they're a really good rebounding team, and it's not even only Donovan Clingan. Like, it's really easy to point like, oh, they got a 7'2" guy down low. Obviously, Kansas does too, but Tristan Newton leads the team in rebounds. He's a 6'5" point guard. And the way that everyone is able to really get their hands on the ball, and the offensive rebounds have been huge when they get all the offensive rebounds, and obviously they're a very, very hard team to beat. So yeah, I mean, the rebounding, it has been great. It has been very good so far. There have been a couple games where it slipped a little bit, like against Mississippi Valley State, ironically, but they are very good in that aspect, and it's not just one guy. It's really a team effort.
Yeah, so let's talk about Cam Spencer right now, leading the team in scoring compared to last year, like way more efficient on the offensive end. So if you're Kansas, how do you look at a guy like Cam Spencer and try and be able to slow him down?
Yeah, Cam really, he lets the game come to him, and that's, I think, why he's shooting so well, because the ball moves around so much, and there's so many guys who can shoot, who can score. When they're not throwing it down to Donovan, who's been drawing double teams and opening guys up. And Cam's really getting a lot of open shots. So slowing him down, I think, is just being able to play one-on-one and staying out on him and not really losing him, because he can get lost in the offense, and that's where he gets open. The same thing for Alex Caravan, and he's usually in the corners or on the wings, and they get a lot of open shots. And that was really the frustration on Monday, because they had a ton of open shots and they shot 4 of 28. So yeah, they're hard to stop. But
yeah, and then another guy we want to talk about, you've kind of already mentioned him, but Tristan Newton. I mean, we've got Kevin McCullough over here racking up triple doubles like Kansas has never seen. Newton's got 3 of them. So, I mean, what have you seen out of Tristan Newton so far this season as to why he's honestly been one of the best players in the country so far?
Yeah, a lot of it is, guys like Cam Spencer, like you just mentioned, making assists easy for him. And then Donovan Clingan obviously throwing it down low. And then he's just a really good rebounding guard. His shooting hasn't been up to where it should be and where it normally is to start the year. I don't have the exact number on me, but he's had a rough start shooting the ball. But that's something that he did well last year, especially in the big moments. He had 19 and 10 in the national championship game. And yeah, I think he's one of the most important players on this team.
All right, Joe, I want to get your thoughts now on kind of the keys to the game, what UConn has to do to come out with a victory. What do you think that is for UConn? I
think it's finding a way to defend Hunter Dickinson, of course, but then also not letting other guys get involved, get hot from the perimeter. The 3-point shooting is going to be huge. When UConn's hitting from 3, they can run the score up, but when other teams are hitting threes, they can really keep it close, obviously. And rebounding, like you mentioned, they want to have that advantage there. That's the way that they play. That's one of their main focuses. And then of course, defensively, getting stops, getting steals, and forcing turnovers.
All right, Joe, we got one last thing before you go. UConn set a record by winning 24 straight non-conference games by double digits.
Wow.
Absolutely absurd.
That's insane.
Does the streak continue against Kansas, or do you think it might end here? Do you have maybe a score prediction for us?
A score prediction? Man, it's really tough, because I was at all of those games, and it was my first year, as you mentioned. Last year was my first year covering college basketball. I just had graduated from college and got the job. Got lucky, covering a national championship my first year. And I thought the tournament games would be tight, but they weren't. They beat everybody by 20 or 15, whatever it was. Score prediction. I hate score predictions. I'm so bad at them.
I feel like this one could go either way. I feel like UConn could win by 20 or Kansas could win by 20.
I could see it.
That's the thing. I'm gonna say 79-70. So yeah, in that prediction, it would end the streak. But
79-70 UConn.
Yep.
UConn.
Yep. I think they just celebrated with some ice cream in practice their streak. So
vibes are up. So the vibes are up.
The vibes are up, definitely. Yeah.
Can't say the same for Kansas right now, coming off that game last night. But Joe, thank you very, very much for joining us, previewing UConn, talking some UConn hoops with us. Joe, you're going to be here on Friday, yeah, in Allen. Sure, it'll be a great time. Yeah. Allen Fieldhouse is going to be absolutely crazy. Already having campers lining up. But thank you, Joe, for joining us.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, for sure. Can't wait.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Hum. We just got done talking to Joe, giving us some information on UConn. But now it's time for the Under 4 segment, the Under 4 timeout. And it's time to draft our Bill Self
Yes.
all-time starting fives.
Yes.
Jackson, I'm giving you the first pick here, okay? You have the first pick. Who are you taking? Bill Self only, all-time starting five, and we're going to snake it. So I get 2 after this.
That's
and
true.
I just get 2.
That's true.
You know how it goes. Let's do it.
I'm going to start off with the no-brainer. Frank Mason the third. 0.
I thought he would maybe slide.
No, he's not going to slide. And he's player of the year. Wooden, Big 12 player of the year. Absolute shame we never saw him in a Final Four. That's kind of that's really the only knock on his whole career. No Final Four. But I'm taking him.
Go with the guy who has been to a Final Four, who actually has won a national championship, and besides Danny Manning, is the most accomplished Jayhawk of all time, according to Bill Self.
Ooh.
I'm taking Ochai Agbaji with the second pick in the draft. Ochai, man, that senior year was special for him. I think he averaged like right under 20 points per game.
Also could have been player of the year.
Also could have been a player of the year candidate. He won Big 12 player of the year. I'm going Ochai. And then I'm looking at my board here. I think I got to go Andrew Wiggins with my next pick.
That's
really
fair.
strong on the wing with
really say much
Wiggins. I remember watching him dropping like 40 plus points in college, so he was the number 1 pick for a reason. I got Wiggins.
All right, my turn. Okay, I'm just claiming him at 4. There's no way he's still here. Mario Chalmers, the shot. My backcourt is now Frank Mason and Mario Chalmers. I mean, what it doesn't get better than that for a Bill Self backcourt. So that's no brainer. Mario, the shot.
I was going to Mario. That's tough.
All right. Pick 5. This gets interesting because I feel like after this, there's 0 no-brainers. I'm going to go with Brandon Rush. Brandon Rush is, in my opinion, one of the best pure scorers that Bill Self has ever had at Kansas. For his career, averaged 14 a game. For his career, shot 44% from 3 in his career. 44% for a career is crazy. Give me Brandon Rush. He's on that Natty team. He knows how to win. And he was beating UNC 10 minutes into that Final Four game. Brandon Rush 12, North Carolina 12. Bez 12. I'm in now.
I wasn't thinking about Brandon Rush at all, but now that you bring up these points, he probably should have been on one of our teams.
I just love watching that man shoot the rock. I love it.
All right. So you've kind of screwed me here at the guard position. So I'm just
no
going to take Devontae Graham. Like, that's kind of a no-brainer now.
Yeah. You got to take that. Yep.
So my 1 through 3 is now Dite, Ochai, and Wiggins.
And mine is Frank, Mario, Rush. That's pretty solid.
I think I'm taking my 3, but
okay.
All right. I got another pick.
Go for it.
I'm going Udoka Azubuike. How can you not? I need a dominant big to go with these 3 phenomenal wing players. So Udoka. I'm going Doke.
Right. I would go Doke too if I were you. All right, my last 2. So I got to fill out the front court here with these last 2 picks.
Don't do it.
I see.
Don't do it to me.
I see my Missouri hero. I see him. My other number 0, my favorite one. But
stay away.
I'm gonna start my front court off with Joel Embiid.
Okay.
Bill said Joel Embiid tried to quit first day of practice. Bill said, "Son, you're not going anywhere. You're gonna be number 1 pick." And if it weren't for injuries and Andrew Wiggins, he would have been. Then he went number 3, and now he's an NBA MVP. Give me JoJo at the 5. And T-Rob, I'm sorry.
Yes,
you're not picking Marcus Morris. Marcus Morris had a better career than Thomas Robinson at Kansas. He did. He's a consensus All-American. He's a Big 12 Player of the Year, lottery pick. Marcus Morris is that guy. There's a reason T-Rob only had 1 strong year at Kansas because he was backing up Marcus Morris for 2 of them.
Oh, whatever. Thomas Robinson is a dog, dude.
He is.
I love He had the block against Missouri. For one of us not to pick him, I think would be a crime. So I have to pick T-Rob.
We got to have him on the squad.
Here we go now. Who do you got? I got Dite, Ochai, Andrew Wiggins, Thomas Robinson, Udoka Azubuike. I don't even care the 5 names you say. That team is not losing to anybody.
Well, Marcus Morris, I'm looking in his last year, had 10 double-doubles. Okay. So he's my 4, JoJo my 5. My backcourt of Frank Mason and Mario Chalmers. And my 3, Brandon Rush. Snubs? Who'd we snub?
Jalen, I would say, probably a big
Jalen.
I think
Think Aldridge, Withy, McCormick would have all been fine. No CB,
honestly.
no Ben McLemore.
Oh, Ben McLemore is probably a pretty big snub.
But like, look at our backcourts though.
Yeah.
Where's Ben fitting in there? You know, it's no shade on Ben. It's just Kansas has had some insane guards.
Well, all right, there we have it. Let us know, everybody, who has the better team. I mean, I think it's pretty
Send out
obvious,
a poll on the Twitter account.
but let us know. That's all we got today for the Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast. Thank you very much for joining us for episode 7. We will be back after the UConn game to talk some more Kansas basketball. Thank you guys for joining us. See